My name's Hunter. I've been with the company for about 3.5 years. It's given me the awesome opportunity to see us go from working with 7 states to now 37 states. And in conversation with some of our customers and our customer success team, we've been able to identify a few key things that we know make an impact when it comes to public engagement. And that's what brings us here today. This Deminar is going to be all about reach, whether that means starting at the beginning of a project, if you're at the middle of a project, or following up with people at the end of a project. I want to first just let you know who you're going to be hearing from today. Again, I'm Hunter. I'm with the marketing department. Chandler is with us today from the sales department, and Sophie, she's our solutions architect. She's our expert on all things public input products. A little bit more about our company and why we exist. It's because we believe that collaborative democracy succeeds through technology. We know that technology is increasing at an exponential rate, and that it can be difficult to keep up with that, especially if you're trying to match the latest tools with your public outreach tactics. And we also have noticed that a lot of times people will often use these tools that are really made more for small businesses or even big businesses, people that are trying to advertise to customers, when what they need is something more that's purpose built for government. And so what we do here at Public Input is we want to take that power of technology, that ability for technology to really do the work for us, and use that in a way that creates a more collaborative democracy. We typically work with local governments, whether that's cities or counties, but also transportation organizations like MPOs and DOTs, as well as transit agencies and the consultants that work with them. Again, through conversations that we've had with our current customers and also with our customer success team that is in constant contact with our customers, we've identified these 4 steps. These are the 4 things that we see happen on every project. You want to reach the public. You want to get them to engage. So even if you get in front of them, how can you try to get them to engage, make it as easy as possible, lower those barriers to entry? Also get more meaningful engagement, right? Go beyond just a multiple choice or fill in the blank answer. We know that we want to be able to analyze that public input that we get, and then also close the feedback loop and follow up with our residents. We know that's the #1 way to build public trust. And here at Public Input, our software is a solution that unifies that public engagement process. This won't be the first time you see this graphic today. All that to say that the main focus of today is reach, but because we know that these steps don't necessarily happen in a vacuum, and that we need some way to unify all these steps as they happen throughout a project. You might hear us get into a little bit more of the engage, analyze, and follow up today, but namely our focus is going to be on reaching residents. And when we reach residents, we know that we want to send them somewhere. So I promise we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of this in just a second. But first, I wanted to show you an example of typically where our customers send the residents that they reach. And these are our engagement pages. And you can see the benefits here. The top one in my mind, honestly, is the opportunity to inform residents as they engage, right? So this example that you're looking at here is from the city of Charlotte and their Unified Development Ordinance. So you can see here that they're able to provide some additional information and contacts with a couple of articles there up top. There's an opportunity for a resident to opt in and provide their contact information first thing. We'll talk a little bit about the benefits of that resident database a little bit later today. And then it's a little grayed out there, but you can see these tabs, and those tabs are essentially where the engagement happens, where we're able to get in front of them with questions. And then also on the right-hand column there, Charlotte has the opportunity to provide tips for commenting. Again, just another way to get more meaningful engagement. You can think of these essentially as drag and drop websites where we make it easy to quickly plug in content and questions. So this is just an example of one project page. But again, to use City of Charlotte as an example, they're able to host all of their projects on one hub. And you can see here they've gotten a fair amount of engagement over just the past year and a half or so. So this is a place where you can list all of your projects. So you can also send residents here once you reach them, and they can scroll and find the projects that are most applicable to them. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Chandler and Sophie.
Hey, thanks, Hunter, for the primer and the frame up there. So I'm going to quickly pivot the spotlight actually over to Sophie. She's one of our solution architects. Actually, Sophie and I spend a majority of our time normally on one-to-one customized platform demonstrations. That's where we're aligning the specific platform capabilities with the unique outcomes that the local governments are trying to create. We really like these informal theme-based presentations that we're doing because we think it gives a really informal and easy way to get a peek behind the curtains of our platform. So to keep us on track, all under the halo of reach, some of the things we want to make sure we cover is talking about creating public engagement strategies using demographic data, increasing participation by meeting people where they are, unifying all public outreach and feedback for analysis, and building a resident database to re-engage project areas and stakeholders. So the orange is going to keep us on track, but this narrative that we're going to unpack is going to share with you where our mindset and our head is at. So we believe that trusted data is powerful for creating efficient and effective strategies. However, we know that big data is great, but if you can't synthesize it into actionable insights or you don't trust it, then big data really just becomes a catchphrase.
Thanks for framing that up, Chandler. And a good way to understand this in terms of what our platform can do for you is through our equity mapping feature. So what this is a tool that allows you to target your audiences very intelligently and intentionally. This is a game changer for public outreach because for so long, public officials have had to guess at how their communities are impacted. But now as technology has evolved, being able to first pinpoint on a map where your engagement is coming from, and second, overlay trusted data like the EPA's EJ Screen data, which shows you key things like where your most vulnerable populations are, unlocks the ability to compare where you're getting your engagement from on a map as the engagement period is happening, so you can course correct and adjust your strategy multiple times throughout the engagement period and definitively know whether or not you're reaching the communities you want to reach.
Thanks, Sophie. That's great. Iterating earlier on in the project is definitely very powerful. So the other thing we want to talk about is another one of these reach pillars is meeting residents where they are in familiar formats. And we think mixed mode is the most engaging and dynamic way to do this. An example of how this could be composed is you could pair online presence, in-person, text message, and even target social media. By doing that, an organization has a much better chance at informing and engaging a broad representative set of residents.
Totally agree on that one. And by the way, these multiple modes don't have to create a bunch of disjointed tools. It can actually be integrated all in one place. And I'll get to that a little bit later on. But a great example of one of our clients who was able to meet people where they were was the North Carolina Department of Transportation when they did their ferry survey. So they were able to use our texting feature to deploy a survey in which they wanted to get some feedback on the ferry system, how they're doing, whether or not the routes were applicable to people, whether or not they wanted any changes in their overall experience. So on the ferries themselves, they had signs, both with a QR code and also a text-in option, so people could do whichever option they preferred. And what this really allowed them to do was get some very basic and consistent feedback from the people who are most directly impacted by their operations. So they were able to capture people where it was most relevant for them and in the way it was most relevant for them, because you're most likely going to have your phone on the ferry if you're traveling and maybe bored for 5 minutes. So it was a fantastic way to get in front of people, and the engagement they got on this was a huge success. And the last thing I'll say about this is one really beautiful aspect of what the DOT did with this particular project, aside from making it really easy for people to give their feedback where it's most relevant, they also had the opportunity to capture those folks and say, hey, if there's emergencies, would you want us to sign you up for the emergency update system, in which they actually send out text via their emergency management system. So not only are you capturing people where it's most relevant, but you can also funnel them through other relevant channels to inform them on topics they may want to know about, like if the ferry is going to shut down one day, or if there is a hurricane or any other event that would affect them. So it's doubling up on your ability to provide a service to people where it's most applicable to their lives.
Thanks, Sophie. Another one we want to talk about is, and to stay on track here, is unifying outreach tactics and compiling feedback. So where our head goes in this area is technology should make strategic outreach feel seamless and streamlined. I think it's easy to say that, but it's really hard to do. And our product team prioritizes this because technology should feel like it's actually doing real heavy lifting work for you and your team. It should not be a distraction. And we actually want the technology to inspire you and give you the confidence to reach out for more public input.
Yeah, great point. And I know when people hear about powerful platforms, they may think they're complex and complicated to use, but that's just not the case. What this graphic is showing here is that our system is designed so that you can manage all these different tactics in one singular dashboard. And more importantly, when it comes time to manage or analyze those results, you can see all those results in one centralized place. And all the feedback is mapping to those exact questions you included across all those different tactics. And to give you an example of what aggregation can really do for you is to look at one of our clients, City of Austin, Texas here. The screenshot on the left is showing their dashboard that gives some quick stats of how many visitors and participants they're getting across all of their projects. What's important to highlight here is that these are the results for just 1 month. So these kinds of engagement stats for 1 month are fantastic and really speak to just how well they're reaching and engaging their residents. Of course, this dashboard also shows them other helpful items like top questions they receive responses to throughout the month, where on a map their engagement is coming from, and also they were able to create a word cloud to visualize common themes that residents were talking about in their comments. So not only are we managing our reach tactics in one place, we're also managing the engagement results and compiling it into one place so that we don't have to do any manual work and can quickly come in here and comb for insights.
Thanks, Sophie. So bringing us home here on the last theme here underneath the halo of reach is talking about creating transparency and trust by following up. We believe it should be easy to follow up with residents who have already engaged and re-engage in the future. So we're operating in a space now where closing the feedback loop just isn't a common courtesy or a nicety. It's actually a cyclical, dynamic process. And when it's done early and often throughout the project, it helps build relationships with residents. And when done consistently over time, it's the primary driver of building trust.
Thanks for framing that up, Chandler. So now that we're managing all of our tactics and our results in one place, our resident database makes it really easy to close the loop in a couple of ways. You can update residents on progress of projects, share final decisions, recommend other engagement opportunities, or like one of our clients here, City of Greenville, South Carolina has done. They were able to notify all the residents who previously participated in a meeting or survey about this particular project to any upcoming meetings. And they were able to do so by clicking a button that allows them to segment these residents in a particular group and send an email to all to let them know about future meetings or surveys. And by the way, residents always have the option to remain anonymous when participating. And in fact, we encourage them to do so. So by reaching their residents before, during, and after the engagement or project period, they're able to demonstrate that they are listening to the input is being considered in the decision-making process, and in the spirit of transparency, here's the progress or the results of this project. More transparency in the process breeds trust, and having one platform where you can centralize operations makes two very abstract and hard to define concepts, increasing transparency and increasing trust, suddenly very easy and tangible.
Awesome. Thanks, Chan and Sophie. This is Hunter again. I'm just gonna chime in briefly to let our attendees know that they're actually inside of a public input product right now. We're running this public demonstration through our public meetings tool. You guys got here with essentially one click. You're on a public facing site, but you may have noticed that you didn't have to enter a password. Um, you didn't have to download any new software. It's just like going to any other website. So just want to briefly point that out and show you what it looks like. So essentially you can use any video conference software you're already using. So that could be a Zoom or like a GoToMeeting. You just plug in, or excuse me, not GoToMeeting, Google Meet or Microsoft Teams. We also pair up with WebEx. You simply plug in some basic meeting information. In this case, we just put in the auto-generated link from our Zoom account. And then with a couple of clicks, you launch the meeting and you have all the same infrastructure as you would that you're used to in a Zoom or a WebEx. There's a chat box. We also have the ability to have folks call in live. We're not doing that today, but it's great if you're hosting a virtual public meeting for your residents. So speaking of the chat box, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat box now. Also wanted to provide a couple of different ways that you all could follow up with us. These are Chandler and Sophie's emails. If you're interested in a one-on-one demo, it's as simple as going to publicinput.com/demo. I'd also encourage you to take the survey. It's in the second tab on this website. We're definitely interested to know how we can make these even better in the future and what a possible next step could be with you. And Chandler and Sophie, if you have any last words, we'll wait and see if any questions are coming in.
No, I'd just like to say thank you, Hunter. That's a great way to wrap up. I think you highlighted how paying attention to all the details that matter. You highlighted making it very easy and elegant for someone to single click and participate in a meeting on a platform, or one of the many video platforms that most of our local governments are already using. So paying attention to those little details and using technology to do that is how you help promote more engagement and more productive dialogue with your local residents that you serve.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. That's really what this is all about. We exist because we wanted to provide an opportunity for government organizations of all kinds to build true relationships with their residents, get that collaborative democracy through technology, and ultimately build public trust. And I really am a true believer in our software that we just make that process a lot easier. Like there's finally a way for people to leverage technology to actually do that heavy lifting work, like you mentioned, Chan. A lot of what our software does is automate, aggregate, and analyze, and really seamlessly provide opportunities to get through that public engagement process from day one of a project until final decision making. So if anyone here has questions, just know that you can email us, and also you can always come back to this website, drop comments in there. We get email alerts just like one of our customers would if someone makes a comment. So we can actually follow up directly with you that way. If there aren't any other questions, then I'm happy to wrap up the public demonstration now. We are here to help you have a better relationship with your residents. So if you saw something today that piqued your interest, please feel free to reach out. Sophie and Chandler are both available for one-on-one demos. They'd be happy to take a deeper dive into our platform and show you the full power of public input. We also have a ton of free case studies for download on our website. And we'd also be happy to make a recommendation to one of our current customers for you to reach out to. I want to thank everybody again for attending the public demonstration today. Goodbye and so long from Public Input.